And Mike said you like to go by Jake, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect, man. Cool. Okay. All right. We're recording. So I'm gonna count us in 3, 2, 1. And we're back in the box with our boy, Jake Round, owner of the legendary Pure Noise Records, and also resident LA King fan. Jake, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem, man. So, how are we doing out west? Because season just started, and Mikey and I don't do well keeping up with the Western teams to begin with until it matters down towards the end. So, how are your boys looking this year, man?
Bad, but not as bad as last year. We managed to get an overtime win last night against Calgary, which was sort of a disappointment because they were up 3-0 after one and gave up 3 unanswered. But it was kind of a cool storyline. Kachuk had the tying goal with like a minute to go. It was a pretty sick goal. He tipped it to himself out of the air. But then Doughty had the overtime winner, and they have their whole kind of what has become a bit of a ridiculous feud at this point going on. But it was a cool win. And then we lost to the Oilers on Saturday, 5-6. But to be honest with you, after the very offense-starved season we had last year, if you gave me 5-6 losses all season long, I would be totally fine with that. I'm just glad that there's more kids in the lineup. We were one of the oldest teams in the league last year. And it's hard to be like too upset as a Kings fan because we've won 2 cups in the last 7 or 8 years. So it's kind of just what happens to cup winners when you put a bunch of your picks in hawk to try to win now. Same thing's going on with the Blackhawks, right? They're also not looking great, even though they've got a couple of stars that aren't quite as old as ours. So you would think that they would be in a little better shape, but when you do well, this is kind of what happens, I guess, unless you're the Patriots and you're just always winning.
But you guys must have drafted pretty well because the Ontario Reign won the Calder Cup, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, the Reign were awful last season, but that was in large part because we had like their 6 best players up on the big club for most of the season. So it was easy to see why they were bad. But we have a bunch of sick prospects that are playing with the Reign right now, and then a couple that are that made the team. This Bjornfoot kid ended up making the team. He's an 18-year-old defenseman, and I think I honestly don't know if they would have burned his. It remains to be seen if they'll burn his rookie contract or not. It's he gets 9 games, 8 games in the National League before they have to pay him the full go. Or because they're talking about sending him back to the Swedish Elite League, I think. But Doughty is so high on him. And last year we had Doughty playing with Fortbert, who is fucking terrible. He's like the bane of my existence. And I don't even know where he is now. He's not on the roster. I Googled last night because I was such a hater that I was talking to my Kings friends. So I was like, it's really nice to not see Fortbert. Where is he? And then I looked on the Reign, the AHL affiliate team, and he wasn't on that website either. And I was like, where is he? He's played like 300 games in the National League. I can't imagine he'd just disappear. He was a first-round pick for us. But anyway, Daddy was really excited about this kid, so he ended up making the squad. And there's been a couple of other young guys. Anderson Dolan is an interesting prospect. He's in the A right now. But, we've got some picks, and I think that Muzzin trade is going to work out for us long term. He went to Toronto last year, and we ended up getting the second first rounder for him. So, kind of like reloading on the youth side of things. And the NHL is funny, man. It turns around really fast, and we still have 7 or 8 guys that were on those cup teams. But I don't have any big expectations this year other than it be a little more entertaining than last year. I have season tickets, so I go to a ton of the games.
Yeah.
So it's been, last year the year before was okay. We ended up making a cool playoff run, and we got swept by Vegas, but the games were crazy. Like, it was one of the lowest scoring playoff series ever. Like, I think the goaltending between Click and Fleury set records for both goaltenders combined in a series. So it wasn't the worst in the world, and like some of our stars are getting old. So, but this season, I still think we'll probably be in the bottom half, but the West, to your guys' probably advantage, the West sucks. So you guys see the better hockey, and so our division could very possibly also be weak. Like, I think San Jose is going to be down. The Ducks are terrible. So we're not going to have the steepest competition. So hopefully that kind of makes things a little easier on us. And to be quite frank, as long as they can win some games at home, it's not so bad for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a season ticket holder too. So first and foremost, yeah.
Are you got Isles guy?
Yeah, I am. Yes.
Nice.
Yes. And so I can absolutely say, yeah, as long as they win at home, I'll be happy. But I was gonna bring that up because you guys making the playoffs last year. I mean, you like you said, you really didn't really have a strong season, and you went on a nice little run towards the end. And I feel like it's so overlooked by the St. Louis run. I mean, obviously different magnitude. They take it all the way home, but yeah, I mean, people forget.
Yeah,
the Kings made the playoffs last year.
It was the season before last year. Last year,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Last year was second worst in the league, only to Ottawa. But
you had me beat because I started remembering what you were talking about, and I thought that was last year too.
No, totally. Yeah, it's the year before last year. What's funny too is I think I'm one of the only people I know that picked the Blues to win I picked Blues to win the cup in my bracket, and I was wrong about just about everything else because all the favorites got murdered. But the Blues just reminded me so much of those Kings Cup teams where one of the years they won, they had a coaching change at the beginning of the season, just like St. Louis did, and then went on a crazy run. And the team physically reminded me of those teams because they're sort of big and very physical. And until they officiate the playoffs the same way they officiate the regular season, that like old time hockey vibe really isn't going to die. Like in the regular season, it's all skill, and I think that has changed the game tremendously since I played when I was a kid. Like, I would be fucked in this current kind of system. I was a big, slow guy that just was and playing on sub-sized rinks in Southern California growing up. It was great for me because people couldn't run away from me. But now the game's opened up so much and changed a lot. But once it comes playoff time, all of a sudden the clutching and the grabbing and all that kind of stuff starts to slide, and you see big physical teams like St. Louis sort of just beat people to death, and that kind of sort of winning in wars of attrition, and it seems like that's kind of how it played out last season.
Yeah, I love the change. It seems to be it always seems to be like a topic of conversation about how the rules seem to change when you get to the postseason and the playoffs, and I like that kind of hockey because it's so much more even than you know.
Right. No, totally. It's the same in basketball as well. I'm a big Warriors fan, and it's really interesting. Like, you just see the contact they allow on shots in pretty much all sports in the postseason is quite a bit different. And it's, I don't know, to me, once you're at that point, you just kind of want to watch the players play the game for the most part. But at the same time, we had some egregious officiating errors last playoffs that were just fucking crazy. I'm pretty sure it was actually, it went against St. Louis where there was when they were playing San Jose, the crazy hand pass in the slot in overtime. Yeah. And this is, I officiated hockey for like 15 years. I started when I was 12, and I did it all. It was like my only job going up through high school and college. And when I first started the label in 2009, I was refereeing hockey, substitute teaching, doing the label. And strangely enough, there's like a hockey tie-in to how I even started in music, because when I was 22, I moved from LA to San Francisco, and I was refereeing hockey up there. And a woman that I officiated with pretty often named Madeline. We were talking one time, and I started mentioning about how like Fat Records was like my hero record label growing up, and she was like, "Oh, really? Mark Tamo, the label manager, was like in my wedding. He's a good friend of my husband." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I would like do anything to intern at Fat." And at this point, I had already kind of had like an established teaching career, and I was working on my master's degree in education, and it kind of assumed that I would be a high school teacher and a football coach. I played football in high school and in college, and that was kind of my life plan. And I'd actually done that my first year out of college before I moved to the Bay. And anyway, she was like, "Oh, well, I can, I can introduce you." And I had to be a little persistent, but I ended up getting an internship there. And my student teaching didn't go very well. And I started to really think like, maybe I don't really want to be a teacher. And wasn't really enjoying it. And I didn't like the hours, and it was really, really unflexible. And I started at Fat, and I was just like, stuffing envelopes and refurbishing CDs. And I was like, you know what, this is what I really want to do. And from there, I ended up getting like my first paying music job, and I worked for a magazine for a while. And I worked for the Rasputin's record store chain, which is sort of like California's closest thing to a Newberry Comics. It's not quite that big, but there's like 9 or 10 stores in NorCal. And that was my last like real job, so to speak. But even still, once I quit that, I still had to referee hockey for like another 3 or 4 years while I was doing the label to like kind of like piece it all together and make ends meet. So kind of funny, but refereeing hockey is actually how music turned into a career for me.
Look at that. A whole new connection for us. I love it. I also love the connection to teaching, because I'm also a 4th grade teacher, but it seems like a few people in our music scene were once teachers to start and then ended up taking music full time. So like Chris Carrabba was a teacher.
Yeah.
Bobby from Emarosa was a teacher. Trying to think, the Dikembe guys, they're teachers. So there's a bunch of teachers that are
Pat Flynn from Half Heart is a teacher currently.
So there you go. Yeah. So not even just the hockey and music connection, but also the teaching connection. I love it.
The Kembes are teachers?
Yeah. That's why they only tour like over the summer and stuff.
They have an entire song about being dyslexic.
Hey, that's a thing. So, Jake, you mentioned your upbringing playing hockey. So how does a kid in LA start to love hockey? Was it the whole Wayne Gretzky experience?
Short answer would be yes, but what will make more sense is my father was Canadian. So my dad was born in Guelph, and that in Guelph, Ontario, which is like, an hour from Toronto or so. And so my grandfather played hockey, and like how I really kind of like started with it is when I was like 6 or 5. We were visiting my grandparents in Colorado, and I was just like kind of rooting through their basement, and found a bunch of like this crazy vintage hockey gear, with like the old brown leather gloves that went up almost to your elbows, and the sticks with no curve in them and stuff. And I got it all out and like put it on, and found an old hockey puck and just started like beating it up against the garage. And I thought it was really cool. And my grandpa let me take a bunch of it home. I actually still have his skates in my garage, I think. And I took a bunch of it home, and shortly thereafter, Wayne Gretzky came to LA. And when Gretzky came to LA, it was the first time that hockey was ever on national television. Like, it was always on cable, and there's always been people who were into the Kings. But it's the first time you would start to see it on Channel 5 and things like that. And one thing I remember about being a kid was that he was using that silver Easton stick.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He was always easier to pick out than the other guys, because with that the old camera technology back then, it just looked like a fucking piece of tinfoil running through your screen. So I remember seeing the commercials and being like, oh, I'm going to watch that. And I remember sitting and watching it with my dad. And then that Christmas, I was like, well, I want rollerblades and like hockey stuff. And I just sort of like beat myself to death in front of my house on the blacktop. And I think my dad always kind of assumed I would just like kind of get over it, because it's not like the kids in my neighborhood were playing, you know what I mean? So roller hockey a little bit, and roller hockey got really popular, but I was never super into it. And shortly thereafter, I started taking like lessons and going playing pickups and stuff. And then I ended up playing the following club season. And at the time, there was really no in-house hockey like there is in places where hockey is more popular. You basically have to play travel hockey. So I played. My first year was my first year in mites. I was like 7 maybe, and I played various levels of travel hockey all the way through 18. And at that point, I kind of was like put to a decision whether to do hockey or football. And I played football at like a really good high school football program, and we were in the finals a whole bunch and that whole thing. So I kind of made that decision, which is, looking back, I wasn't ever big enough to be a football player, and I would have been way better off pursuing hockey. But, when you're in Southern California, you probably make the more appropriate choice for the weather around you. But there's always been like a part of me that's been a little jealous of like Canadian kids growing up getting to like skate ponds and stuff like that. We actually had a pond hockey tournament team last year in December, and it was like such a blast because I've never got to play hockey outdoors. So
was it that big one in Buffalo?
No, well, there's a few of them now. There's a big one in Buffalo. There's a huge one. I think like the USA Hockey sanctioned one is in Minnesota, and then there's actually a couple in Colorado as well. There's one in Silverthorne, and there's one, I can't remember where the other one is. So we did the Pabst one, and they're all like various rules. The one in Minnesota is 4-on-4. The one we did was 3-on-3. It was sick. It was a really good time. It was also like we played in the highest division, and I was like a little concerned about it. And the first game we get out there, and there's guys, because Air Force is close to there. There's guys with like Air Force helmets on that played college hockey players, and I was like, it's gonna be interesting, but we did all right. We won a couple and lost a couple, so it was a good time, and we'll be doing it again this year. Actually, Chris from Anti-Flag plays with me, and then Ian from my office also plays hockey. He's our production guy, and then we have another. Vince, who works for the hockey lifestyle brand Violent Gentlemen, he plays on our team as well. So we got a good mix of guys. Pretty fun time.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have the dopest jerseys too.
Oh yeah, so VG puts them together for me. But with last year we did just like kind of classic Kings sort of setup.
Yeah.
With a little twist on it, but they're super nice. And I had deep regret over not doing the retro Kings, the purple and gold, or
Purple and gold.
They call it form blue. I don't know why the fuck it's called blue, but it's purple as possible. But so we're working on a batch of those right now, and actually one of my men's teams that I play on uses the black ones. And of course there's other teams that have black jerseys, so I was like, we're gonna need a second jersey anyway. We're going yellow.
Kings are dropping the classic jersey this year. Is it this year too? They're doing their 90s Gretzky era jersey, right?
They did the 90s Gretzky, not the purple and gold, but for their like whatever it is, like third whatever jersey, it's the classic Gretzky. And I think it comes out like a week before my birthday. I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, just a little nudge here. You might want to keep an eye on that.
Here's the link. Just hold on to that.
So yeah, that thing's definitely sick.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like the pre-Gretzky era jerseys get like the least amount of love over there in LA. I don't know.
I have to admit, I was on the hater committee. I thought that they were the ugliest things ever, and I think like honestly, I've kind of just like got into them out of boredom because I'm a pretty big sports fan in general. Like I'm a massive Raider fan. I've had season tickets for the Raiders every year up until this one for like the last 10 years. And then I live in LA now. So last year I only went to one game and I didn't even use my tickets. I had got a hookup through a friend. So we decided we take this year off until they get into Vegas next year.
Okay.
And so being a big Raider fan, silver and black, Kings are silver and black. It's like a little boring. I was like, I need some some color in my life. And I've been building out like a whole. I got bought a pair of retro Kings pants off of Pro Stock and a pair of gloves off of eBay. So I got the whole rig set up for once we get those jerseys in, just because it's kind of fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would assume that somebody who gets their jerseys made by Violent Gentlemen would make sure that soup to nuts, their entire look is like spotless.
Well, I mean, I'm jealous of you guys. Are you both Islanders fans?
Yep.
Sure are.
Yeah, I mean, great uniforms. So like, it's a little more fun at the same time. Like, I could get away with wearing my stuff in more circumstances because it's not so loud. But at the same time, you're like, I could use a little color. It's a little boring.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, as growing up, because I'm also a Mets fan, blue and orange it's only athletic.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you get away with it, but like it is only athletic colors. Like, so, you know, if you're not going to a game or you're not like an entire fan, like you can't just like have just like a blue and orange color scheme for your like look for the night. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's good.
I don't think they're gonna let you in the club wearing blue and orange in a in a hat.
How
No,
are you guys? How are you guys feeling about the Isle? They had a fucking nice little surprise season. I was not surprised they won the first round. I got to see him play a couple times last year. Barzell is sick. You got some things to be obviously why am I blanking on your coach's name?
Trot.
Trot. Yeah, I was right. I was saying Trots, but I was thinking of Tort. So,
right.
Yeah, Trots is sick. Like there's reason for optimism, I feel.
Yeah. Well, I'll let Mikey give his short opinion. As for us, we definitely dazzled, but it was one of those magic seasons where there was just so much going on. Whether it was the finally getting the approval on building a new arena, to moving the games back out of Brooklyn, or at least half the games back out of Brooklyn mid-season. And then at that point, when they first started playing the games back at the Coliseum, they were kind of deemed as a competitive team. So it was a mega draw to that small hometown crowd, which like amplified the atmosphere there by a million because it's a small arena and it's loud as shit. So then it became a spectacle to play there and go there and watch games there. On top of the Tavares, loss, and then the Leafs coming back home and we trounce them, and then we make the playoffs and we make it past the first round and sweep Sidney Crosby out of everybody, and they don't make it past the first round. So it was just one of those things, leaner season where it was just a lot of magic happening, and now it's kind of like everybody is so used to the organization not being able to sustain that level of success.
The bag is supposed to be that it's fucked up GM and fucked up ownership. Is that correct?
Well,
used to be forever.
Yeah. But the ownership, it wasn't so much. It was I don't know another organization that has paid for the sins of past so long than the Islanders have. I mean, they made some terrible decisions in the late 80s, early 90s that really set them back all through the 2000s. And then the owner did everything he could to keep it together on Long Island, the last owner. And when he finally sold it now, they are doing an amazing job. And they've hired all the right people. They're doing amazing things. So it's kind of ship is resetting itself here. That is resetting course here in the right direction finally.
That's exciting. I've been to a game in Brooklyn, and it's not so bad if you're down below, but right. I've never sat up top for an Islanders game, but I sat up top for even basketball. There sucks. It's just like not a good arena in general. Just a
Right.
bizarre layout. When is the new Coliseum supposed to open? Is it going to be in the same place?
It's actually going to be 5 minutes down the road.
No.
It's right next to the Belmont racetrack. So you know when people win the Triple Crown,
Yeah.
that racetrack right next door to it, like in on its property, it's going to be built there.
And it's going to be smaller, right? Like 12,000 or something like that. 15.
No, I think the number was 17, right, Mike?
Oh, so it's going to be big. Well, I'm sure they're going to want to do concerts and shit there too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think like the minimum is like 13 and a half though, right? Or 14 to like build a new arena, an NHL like minimum arena. There's only two, like Winnipeg is the only one that's grandfathered in, and then the Coliseum right now is grandfathered in for now.
Nashville isn't huge. I don't know if you've ever been to a game there. I've been to one or two, and it's kind of interesting. Like it's only got 3 decks on one side. It's still probably 15,000. It just doesn't feel like Staples. I think it's like 19 or maybe 19 and a half. And it feels big. Like if you're up top, you're up top.
Well, Staples Center is for the
we're in the largest market in the country, or about.
Well, the Lakers.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah. So I would assume that it would have to be huge. But yeah, I guess everyone's just kind of like waiting for the other shoe to fall, so to speak, this year. And they're 1-3. It's funny that you brought up against the Oilers. I think the Oilers are going to be good this year. I think they're going to turn a corner at least.
Speaking of dumpster fire GM and ownership.
Oh yeah, we took advantage of that. Thank you for Jordan Eberle.
Yeah. And yeah, just about everybody worth a shit on our roster came from Chiarelli.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I think the Oilers and a lot of teams in hockey, and you don't see this in other sports. It's kind of interesting where organizationally they hire ex-players a lot, which is funny in some ways because, if you're a professional athlete, it's unlikely that you spent that much time in career or educational development. So I think they kind of fell into that a little bit where they had sort of like an alumni studded front office and not enough bean counters, so to speak. And, it hasn't worked out great for them. And I say that as the Kings are sitting over here with Luke Robitaille as president and Rob Blake as GM. But, it's Cam Neely's done a fantastic job in Boston. So like it can work. It's just like, it doesn't seem to work for everybody. But when you've got the game's greatest player, I'm like ambivalent towards the Oilers. I don't really hate them or obviously they're not my team, but like as fans, like we got to see the game's best player in the playoffs. Like it's just been a fucking disaster.
Yeah. Well, being on a team that had like Canada's golden boy, and every day you had to wake up and hear about how your team is wasting his talent, I know how it feels. So I'm not gonna sit here and say it, but I'm thinking it.
It's pretty interesting to, you have to wonder a little bit, like, what if Tavares stays?
Oh, I'm done with wondering. I know exactly what would have happened.
Well, I went through it a little bit this year with the Raiders and the Antonio Brown situation, and fortunately, he didn't work out in New England either because I was doing a good job of not being emotional about it until he went to the Patriots, and I was like, I have so many fucking dirtbag Patriots fans in my life. One of them, my good friend Nick Holman, he manages state champs, and he's not a dirtbag. I'm just being a jerk, but I was like, brother, you can't come over. Like, I can't have this shit on in my house. Like, you're banned on Sundays. You can come over for the 1:00 games, but I can't have. And then he busted out. I was like, all right, we can put it on the side TV. It was tough, but I obviously even more hurtful when you had him play a bunch of seasons for you, and then he ends up going back to Toronto. But they don't seem like they're in any jeopardy of getting it done anytime soon either. What do you guys think on I feel like everybody and their brother thinks that Tampa Bay is finally going to get it together this year and win. How do you guys feel?
I don't. I really don't. I think the East is just so competitive, and we saw what happened to them last year. I feel like they have a little bit of what the Washington Capitals went through all those years. I don't think they have enough grit to get it done in the playoffs. They could score all those goals, but I don't know. What do you think, Devin?
Well, especially when you pack your team up with a bunch of
Ex-Rangers
washed-up
too.
Rangers that couldn't do it in New York. Shout out Nick Gambarian. This is what you get. You sign up for it. I don't know. It's one of those things where you never bet. Sorry to say it, but you never bet against the Patriots. I mean, they're heavy favorites. They need to get over the mountain top. And you'd sound like an asshole for betting against them, but I mean, at this point, who else coming out of the East?
The New England Patriots have dominated championships for the last decade. Like, these guys can't win anything. So, I don't think it's wrong to doubt them. I read an article in The Athletic this week. I was shocked, like, how overwhelmingly their writer staff picked Tampa Bay. Not that I disagree necessarily, but I think you're right, is that, like, it's the road to the Eastern Conference title is so brutal, because you got to go through Boston at the top. Like, your what are the four favorites we'd say are, like, maybe Washington, Boston,
Toronto,
and Tampa, right? And then let's look at the tier of teams underneath that, which is Pittsburgh, the Islanders,
Carolina.
None of these teams are bad. The Rangers are going to be decent this year if Kakko pans out. Like, it's fucked up. So you could get beat. Anybody could get beat. Whereas in the West, we have Colorado's going to be good. Dallas should be all right. And Vegas should be good. And other than that, like, the other 5 slots, who the fuck knows?
Kind of flying around, yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting season. And I mean, the playoffs were incredible last year with so many upsets. Like, that's what we wait for all season. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm so desperate for hockey right now that I drove all the way down to Orange County, which is like the New York equivalent to, like, going to Jersey for no reason. For the Ducks home opener last week against Arizona. So, like, we're not an exciting matchup. But we did
go with Violent Gentlemen? They had their whole thing, right?
Yeah, we did the skate afterward. I've done that a few times. It's really fun. It's a cool thing to do. We're trying to set one up at Staples, but shocker, it's like 3 times the money.
Yeah, it's like the difference between MSG and the Coliseum.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I started playing hockey in California, there was no Ducks, and I'm a supreme hater. Like, I couldn't disrespect their franchise more. And their building is a dump. Like, the place was half empty on opening night. I'm just like, what kind of shameful organization is this? Opening night, you're like 2/3 full. The Kings are second to last place last year, always full. Granted, it's LA. There's a lot of people here. Say whatever you want. I'm just being a hater. But that's how desperate I was for hockey. I was like, yeah, I'll go to Orange County. I'll make an entire day of this.
So were you a little too old for, like, the Mighty Ducks phase that, like, swept the nation?
Oh, no, I saw the movie in the theaters. It's one of the only movies I could remember my dad ever going to. But no, I loved the movies, and I was so obsessed with hockey at that point. But when I was, like, between the ages of, like, 7 and 12, I only wore Kings clothing, like, every day. Like, that's what I wore. Like, I had Kings shorts, shirts, hats, like, psychopath Kings fan. So, and then as I got into high school, like, and got into football, my hockey fandom has, like, had peaks and valleys at different points in my life. And obviously when I was doing the music thing, and I, like a lot of people, I think, started off as like as a musician, and then you become a failed musician and you're like, oh, maybe I'll be in the music business, which is definitely the right side of it for me. I couldn't imagine touring right now at 36. I'd rather die. But so during those years, I was definitely less engaged in hockey, and I think officiating made it hard on me. Also, it's a very difficult, thankless job, and it made me enjoy the game less. Last night, I play on a couple men's teams, and I played last night, and I was giving this guy an earful, and I'm like, "Why are you yelling at this guy? You know what that's like." I'm just like, it drives me nuts when guys can't stand in the right position. I'm just like, stand on the blue line, call off sides. That's all we want, please.
And you're still very active in your playing career, huh?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a career, but like,
well, your men's league career.
In my midlife crisis, yeah, I'm very active. I play like 3 days a week, sometimes more.
I think our buddy Brian just moved out there, so if you ever need a fill-in,
yeah,
Brian Byrne from Envy on the Coast.
Oh, cool. Yeah, put him in touch if he wants to skate. Like, there's a just sort of coincidentally, my office is about like 100 yards from the Pasadena rink, and they have a daytime pickup that I play a lot on Thursdays. I haven't been playing it as much lately, but normally I'm a regular at it. Would love to have him out.
Yeah, he rips some mean slappers from the blue line.
Nice.
But you mentioned that you have a little bit of Canadian blood. Is that why you're locking in all these sweet Canadian bands? You know, all the sweet little hotspots to pick up these bands?
I don't know. They just have kind of like come our way naturally, I guess. I think how many do we have now? Counterparts, Like Pacific, Selfish Things,
Bearings.
Yeah, we got 4 or 5. No, I think it's just kind of been coincidental. It's funny. Some of the guys play. Oh, Seaway guys play hockey. Some of the guys play hockey, some don't. But as would be the case, I guess. I think it's just been coincidental. Historically, it's been mostly American bands. We've done a handful of international acts, which is working with international acts comes with like a lot more challenges. It's really expensive to get bands into the country. And it's much cheaper to export them. I don't know why that is. It sucks. It's not fair, and it makes it harder to do business. But and it's actually getting with our friend Donald and things like Brexit, it's actually getting worse, not better. So it's definitely a struggle. And Canadian bands have a little bit of that, but it's not so bad. It's not the same fortune it is to get European bands into the country.
See, that's that label side of things that we probably don't know about. I haven't really heard that.
Yeah, that's what I do all day.
So, other than those Canadian bands, though, you have a bunch of other bands on your label that are huge hockey fans as well. With Derek and State Champs and Kellen in The Story So Far. So, definitely have some friendly competition within the label too, right?
I mean, you can't really call the Sharks competition. They can't win anything. And I say that lovingly because I was kind of side rooting for him last year just because I feel like at this point Joe Thornton's earned it. But Kellen's a big fan. Andrew from Seaway is a massive Leafs guy. I'm really all of Seaway, big Leafs fan. We went to a game. We went to a Kings Leaf game last season, and it was very brutal for me. It was like 6-0, 6-1 maybe. Man. Just a true ass taxing. Derek's a big Stars fan.
Yeah, I still don't get that. That makes zero sense to me.
I can't remember what his excuse is there. I was like,
Albany just sucks. I hate to say it. I lived in Albany for 3 years, and it's not a sports town.
But you would think you would be a Rangers fan, right? Like,
or Tom Boston. Williams, I feel like Boston or
Tom Williams is a good friend of mine. He's in Straight from the Path. He's a big Rangers fan.
Yep.
Shout out Stanley Cup loss to the Kings. Who else? Obviously Chris and Anti-Flag. He's not on the label, but he's a close friend. Another Chris in Drug Church plays hockey. He's come out to pick up a couple of times. There's a ton of people in the business that are into hockey. One of the guys I skated with last night works for Interscope. the music buyer at Hot Topic, Mikey, big hockey fan. He's come out and skated pickup with me a few times. Season ticket holder for the Kings. Ian, manager at 10th Street, does Papa Roach and stuff. Season ticket holder at the Kings. So yeah, it's a funny thing. I think hockey is like it's obviously the most niche major sport, and it kind of in a lot of ways parallels punk rock in that aspect. Whereas, at different times in the last 20 years, punk rock has been bigger than others. Rock in general is not huge right now, but there's been times when it was mainstream, but it still sort of had like niche fandom where there's super fans of the genre, just like there's super fans of hockey. And I would, admittedly say that, like, I would say hockey fans can tend to be a little geekier than other sports fans, and that includes myself. I'm literally sitting here watching a Montreal Buffalo game while I'm talking to you guys for no reason that I have no stake in whatsoever. But yeah, but it's for me personally, especially as I've gotten into my 30s, it's been like a really positive thing for me, and keeps me in some sort of shape. Not that I would at all consider it great, but I think one of the reasons why I got back so back into it is because I needed something to do that wasn't hanging out at the bar. And as we get a little older, our body's like, hey, maybe partying 5 days a week is not the way. And so it's been great for that. But it also there is the beer league element, so you get the best of both worlds. A little exercise, couple of beers. It's a nice time.
Hey man, you got to teach me because I haven't figured out that party 5 day a week thing is no good.
When I was younger, living in San Francisco, man, I had a good stretch of years there where I was getting after it. But maybe I'm just full LA now, just LA guy, got the on the health and fitness kick. I hope not, but it is where I live.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Devin, that's where you need to move, bud.
No, I don't think. I mean, you've met me. I don't think I would fit in very well in LA. No, I don't know. I feel like you stick out like a sore thumb over there.
Oh, it's not so bad. I think people that say that LA sucks, it's like you got West LA does suck. You want to hang out in Beverly Hills and West Hollywood, that sucks. Where I live I actually live in Burbank, which is like just on the tip of the valley, kind of connect right on the other side of the hill from like Los Feliz, Silver Lake, kind of the hipper east side areas of Los Angeles. And it's the easiest comparison I could make would be like Manhattan to Brooklyn, but it's not that. But obviously different than that. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in Southern California and then lived in the Bay Area for 11 years. Said I would never come back. Here I am, and it's honestly been great for me. It's been really great for the label. We've added a bunch of staff since being here, and grown quite a bit. But it's a trap, man. It's expensive to live here, and that part of it is not great. Although the big part of the move from San Francisco is, believe it or not, LA is cheaper than San Francisco. It was brutal there.
Really?
Yeah, that's surprising to me.
It's the most expensive place in the country to live. It's worse than New York. It's a supply and demand issue. Like San Francisco as a city, it's like 8 by 8 square miles. And because it's essentially a looming earthquake disaster, you can only build up like 3 or 4 stories there. So it's a very short city, except for downtown. So there's just not a lot of real estate, and you got Google and Apple and everybody else there. So a lot of people with money. It's just an expensive place to live. I own the company, and I'm doing okay. I was years away from buying a house there, and I got to keep in mind, like, the people that work for me want to have lives too. So it's, it made sense, and it's been really beneficial. And my mom and sister are down here. My sister's pregnant right now, so it's like my girlfriend, who's basically my wife, we just bought a house together. Her family's in San Diego, so it was just that time,
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's why I'm in North Carolina right now, basically.
Oh, nice. Where you at?
Charlotte.
My lawyer, Neil, who's also a massive hockey fan, He lives in Raleigh.
Okay, yeah, we'll be there on Friday
Yeah,
for the Islanders Hurricanes game.
yeah, he'll be there. He's got a season ticket. He goes by himself. He's that hardcore. I'm like, dude, I love that.
Tell him to stop by our tailgate. We'll be in lot 3000.
Nice.
Yeah. There we go. Look at us making more connections, being friends and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Never know when we're gonna need a lawyer.
He's the best, man. Like if you ever do, I'm sure he'd be happy to help out. He's a really cool dude and helped us quite a bit. He's a historically big Wings fan, but has adopted the Canes, which is probably for the best at this point.
If we're being completely and utterly honest, that would be the venue I would absolutely need a lawyer at, and Michael can attest.
What?
Yeah.
In Detroit or
No. Any away game.
No, fair play.
Yeah. So that'll actually be pretty smart because I'm going down over there to meet Mikey too.
How did you guys feel about all the kind words Sean Avery had for your fan base last season after the Leaf game?
You know what? He's just looking for a job. That's all it is. This guy.
I mean, he was an asshole when he was in the league. So
yeah, it was
and he's still an asshole.
Like anybody's gonna take Sean Avery as like the moral authority for the NHL. Get the fuck out of here. He's a coke sniffing asshole. Sorry.
Woo! Speaking of coke sniffing, I just finished up the Theron Fleury autobiography. Have either of you guys read that by any chance?
You were gonna have to
finish that. Yeah.
You were gonna have to finish that sentence a lot quicker than you did.
Well,
speaking about coke sniffing, I just finished. Pause. This book.
Hey, I've lived in LA and San Francisco a long time. But anyway, the book is. I actually listened to a Spit and Chicklets episode with Theron Fleury on it, and obviously remember him from when I was a kid. And I would needed a book for vacation, so I bought it on the iPad. It's pretty good. It's long, it's pretty dark, but he
wasn't he a victim of sexual abuse by one of his coaches or something?
Yeah, really fucking brutal. It fucked him up real bad, and he was such. In the book, he talks about he mentions his personal stats quite a bit, not in like a boastful way, but it's very factual. He talks about other guys too. He played a bit with Sakic and some other guys, and so you get a lot of stats in there. And I kind of don't think I realized how crazy good he was. He was maybe a top 5 guy of his era, and I don't think I really put that together. And it's incredible because the guy was fucked up the entire time. And nowadays, there's definitely been a lot of talk. I don't know if you guys listen to Spit and Chicklets at all.
Yeah, a lot, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah, and so there's a lot of talk about how the league's gotten a lot softer, and clearly these kids are so much more focused on actually being athletes. Hockey had such a big drinking culture for a long time, and I think that's a huge reason why the quality of play has improved. But you think about a guy like Fleury, who was without a doubt first ballot Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup champion, Olympic gold medalist, and you're and the only days you weren't doing blow were game days? What the fuck, dude? How good could he have been? Who knows?
Wild.
Crazy.
Yeah, those guys are insane. I don't know how.
Well, it's such a different era. You used to see guys play till they're 40. I don't think you'll see that shit anymore. As the game gets speedier, and that's one of the things that's been frustrating about the LA Kings. It's not to pick on him, I think Jeff Carter will have a much better season this year. I think that the severity of his injury, the sliced Achilles, was a little bit understated, and he was definitely a shell of himself last season. But you see a guy like him that three seasons ago, full blown superstar, 50 goal scorer. And, now some of these guys, the bigger, sort of slower, but have great hands guys, it's impossible to be as effective in today's NHL. It's too fast. So and in that, like, you got to think guys' lifespan is going to get shorter because as you get older, you don't get faster. It'll be kind of interesting to see and how that works into like player contracts as well, because guys don't normally get the big payday until they're 28, 29. Sometimes they do the bridge deal, right? But it'll be curious to see how that all pans out.
Yeah. I think you might even get like a new role player type player out of it, like you're saying, because these guys, you just got to find a way. It's one of like and ironically enough, the Islanders are filled with those people. The older guys have just kind of like found a way. Leo Komarov and Matt Martin, Cal Clutterbuck, Casey Cizikas, Brock Nelson, like, you know, not so much Brock. Brock's a little younger, but you know, these guys like maybe don't fit the mold of of today's standard, you know, bright, shiny, and new, you know, the Mitch Marners of the world and all that. But you know, they find a way. So yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen too, if they're going to be able to keep up with everything. It's really interesting, and like you said, especially on the business end of things, how that's going to affect contracts and whatnot. It's definitely a numbers world nowadays.
Right. Well, if careers get shorter, I think you're going to see more holdouts and stuff like that because guys are going to want it up front. And maybe you're right. Maybe we'll see a different type of player where, you know, I don't think Jeff Carter's going to bust out of the league. I could see him getting traded this season. If he jumps out to like 15 goals in the first half of the season, I bet he goes at the deadline. But I think he can be like a sick third line player for someone. Whereas I would have never considered when we were winning cups, Jeff Carter was the furthest thing from a third liner. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, and if you move him to from center to wing, I think that takes a little bit of pressure off guys like that too. So to be, you know, you put him, maybe we'll probably start to see pairings and line pairings where, you know, they're pairing, you know, older veterans with speedier young guys to kind of balance it out. So it'll be curious. I think you know.
Well, we kind of saw that with Mitch Marner and Matt Martin being on the same line.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great example.
So I know you're a busy man, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I just have one question. I saw that Pure Noise is announcing a new sign-in and some new music tonight. You want to fill us in a little early? Our episode won't drop for a while anyway.
Well, dude, I've overdone it this year. I've signed so many things. We've put out by far the most records of our company's history this year. Fortunately, we've got more staff, and I'm very fortunate to have like incredible people that work for me. But let's see, we signed a new band. Today we announced the Warriors' new record. They haven't put out a record in 100 years, and they were like a huge. That one's a little bit for myself. I was a huge fan as a kid. I don't even know if they know this, but I've played several shows with them when I was still playing in hardcore bands. So, and not even just blowing smoke. The new record's fantastic. There's a bunch of cool features. Winston from Parkway Drive. We just put out a song today with Nate from Sebulba, Jesse from Stick to Your Guns, Scott from Terror. So it's a super cool record. On Monday, I think we're announcing a band called Moontooth, which is a little different for us. It's like a proggier type band, and re-releasing their album, Crux, which is awesome. Super cool band. They've just done a bunch of touring with like Animals as leaders, and it's very like, you know, not that the entire label's guitar driven, but when I say guitar driven, it's very like prog, super guitar driven. Cool band, little different for us. And I think that'll be it for new acts for the year. Thank God, because there's been a lot. And, you know, at the end of the day, there's no quota on good music. So like, you know, we really believe in everything we've been putting out, and it's been like been an exciting year. There's a couple of up and comers that are new and different that I'm really excited about. And, you know, I think for a long time, we're kind of known as the pop punk label, and we still will always do that kind of stuff, but it's been nice to do metal and hardcore stuff. And we've got this band called Just Friends, which is like a funk ska type band from the Bay Area. That's awesome. We just put out a record for this like hip hop metal band called Unity TX from Texas, which I'm super stoked on, super different. So yeah, it's been an exciting year, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
That's the beautiful thing about this podcast, because I'm turning 33 this year, so I'm getting a little bit older too. But it just kind of opened up my eyes to some of the new music that's still coming out. For example, Barron's like killing it right now, so good, just on that huge tour with Grayscale. So happy for those guys on your label, and I still need to see like Pacific show. They're on my bucket list of bands I need to see.
Amazing. Yeah. Great people, great band. And I'm sure they'll be through sooner than later. But I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been great to chat with you.
Hey, man, thank you so much. We'd love to have you back on. And
when we make our way out to LA for an Islanders Kings game, we'll meet up at Kevin Conley's bar in LA and catch a game together.
Sounds great, guys. Look forward to it.
I was close, man. I was close to LA this year, but you know what? We play each other on Thanksgiving weekend or Thanksgiving week. Flights are incredible.
I won't even be in town.
Yeah. Well,
we'll definitely set that up.
All right, boys. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, man.
Thanks, Jake.
All right, bye.